Since Erik ten Hag joined Manchester United, he has made 16 signings, both permanent and loan signings, spending a total of £411 million. That is if all add-ons are activated. In a lot of the permanent signings, that doesn't include the loan transfer fees, taking that total to around 420 million. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to go through all 16 of those signings and we're going to rate them. We're going to give them a little bit of an assessment based on their time at the club, based on how many appearances they've made, if they've made any at all, and currently give them a rating out of 10. Starting at the back then, we will start with Andre Onana. He was an absolute miracle man in Inter Milan's run to the Champions League final. Similar to sort of Liverpool against AC Milan in 2005, they weren't really favoured as going out there and causing too much damage. But with Andre Onana in goal, they were really short at the back, and realistically, they could have nicked the game at the end. He joined Manchester United for £47 million in the summer after a bit of a transfer saga after David De Gea had left the club. But it's not been great, has it? It's not been amazing. He's made mistake after mistake. He's trying to play this football where they play out from the back and generally puts his team under pressure because United just aren't used to that right now. But he did make that all-important penalty save against Copenhagen, which arguably kept United in the Champions League at that point. But Andre Onana, overall, at the time of recording, it's January, he's been with the club 6 months now, or 3-4 months of the season. I don't think he's been great. Personally, I'd give him like a 4 out of 10. Moving on then, Altay Bayindir hasn't made an appearance for Manchester United, and with the news that Andre Onana is sticking around for the Wigan and potentially the Tottenham games, suggests that he isn't going to play for Manchester United anytime soon, and unfortunately with that, I can't give him a rating. Jack Butland came in alone. Erik ten Hag basically said, I want 3 strong goalkeepers, regardless of whether they're going to play. Martin Dubravka had to leave to go back to Newcastle after they suffered an injury. So Jack Butland came in to play number 2 or number 3.
In our setup, we need a squad with 3 experienced goalkeepers.
Martin Dubravka, though, he did make an appearance in the Carabao Cup, maybe made more than one appearance. Again, a very forgettable player in the history of Manchester United. But what's great about him and what Erik ten Hag played quite well was the fact that he couldn't play in that Carabao Cup final because he had played in the Carabao Cup for Manchester United. Look, he hasn't been any better than Andre Onana. Andre Onana's obviously played a lot more games. Andre Onana had the £47 million fee and the world-class moniker against his name. For Martin Dubravka, I give him a 4 out of 10. But that's based on his performance and his expectations, not to be confused with comparing him directly with Andre Onana. Moving into the defenders then, Tyrell Malacia came in, one of Erik ten Hag's first signings, and it was seen as a bit of a coup really, because he was heading to France. And it was almost like United waited until transfer fee had been agreed for the left-back before United swooped in and basically stole him from under their noses. United paid £15.7 million, again, if all add-ons are brought in. Took Luke Shaw's place at the beginning of the season, which many were seeing as, oh, this kid's coming in, he's Dutch league. Erik ten Hag must know him from his time at Ajax, playing against him in that Dutch league. You know, maybe he's got some spark that nobody else around Europe has seen. Over the time, though, Tyrell Malacia's performance is waned. His ceiling seems to be very close. Luke Shaw came back, has been absolutely fantastic, and has taken his place back in the team. I mean, not just taking his place back, you know, Luke Shaw can play at centre-back as well. And essentially, when Luke Shaw needs to go back to left-back, the person that sacrifices Tyrell Malacia. When fit, he's been out for quite a while with an injury. And it doesn't seem that if Luke Shaw is fit, that Tyrell Malacia has a place in the starting 11, maybe on the bench, maybe in a cup game if United get there, but we've only got the Premier League really and an FA Cup run if United can mount one, which I'm recording this before United play Wigan, so there's every chance that by the time it comes out, United could be out of the FA Cup. So Tyrell Malacia, 4 out of 10. Sergio Reguilon, another left-back. United made this signing as an emergency because both Tyrell Malacia and Luke Shaw were injured at the start of the season. United were basically panicking because Erik ten Hag wanted a dedicated left-footed left-back, and Marc Cucurella was who United were looking at to get from Chelsea, but for whatever reason, that didn't come off. Sergio Reguilon came in, and he looked all right. He wore his heart on his sleeve. He was ill, and he told ten Hag that he wanted to play, and Erik ten Hag was saying, yeah, you know what, that's the sort of player I want in my team. And then he got injured, so he was out for a little bit. But do you know what? He looked good when he played. He was whipping crosses in. He looked like he had a bit of impetus, a bit of class about him. But slowly but surely, you started to see why he was third or fourth choice at Tottenham. So Sergio Reguilon, for the short period of time he was at Man United, bearing in mind that this period of time he's been sent back to Spurs, which sort of suggests that Erik ten Hag doesn't see any value in keeping him, whether it's the loan fee, continue paying his wages, or whether he just doesn't see him as a player worth keeping around. But Sergio Reguilon, for the period of time he was at Man United, I'd give him a 6 out of 10. I thought he was okay. Nothing special, but above average. Next up then is Jonny Evans, who came back to United on a free. Initially, he came to train at United. Basically, he impressed Ten Hag that much that he offered him a short-term deal of about a month or 2 months just to get United going over the summer and on the tour. And he was, good enough that Erik ten Hag decided to sign him on a 1-year contract. Jonny Evans is pretty much United's first choice starting centre-back at the minute. With all the injuries that we've had, we've got Varane, who's quite brittle. Maguire was injured, came back and he's injured again. You've got sort of Luke Shaw, who's playing a bit of centre-back, but again, he's injured. Lisandro Martinez is not back from his injury yet. So Jonny Evans, even though a lot of people say he's injury-prone, he's proven time and time again that he can be relied upon. And for me, for now, he's player of the season. So based on right now and what he's played, Jonny Evans for me, 9 out of 10. Well, last up on the defenders is Lisandro Martinez. He's the only player of the Erik ten Hag era so far that people are really saying Erik ten Hag got right, and he's an absolute perfect signing and is one of the Manchester United mould. Unfortunately, like many of the players I'm mentioning in this video, he's injured and he's had I think it's a foot injury, and he's just going back into training now. There's a chance that he may be on the bench against Wigan when United play. He may even get some minutes, but if not, there's the Tottenham game on the horizon where again he may get some minutes or he may be on the bench for just to get that match day feel. But £56.7 million from Ajax, probably expensive for a bit of an unknown defender, but I'm going to say 7 out of 10 simply because of his injury record. And you want a player that you can build a team around, you can build a spine around, and you don't want that player to be somebody that's out injured. Now at the moment, that foot injury may not recur. But for now, while he is injured, we don't know how good he's going to be when he comes back. We hope he's going to come back as good as he was. We hope he's going to command that box and be that left-sided centre-back. But for me, I give him a 7 out of 10. In midfield then, moving on, we've got Sofyan Amrabat, Mason Mount, Marcel Sabitzer, Casemiro, and Christian Eriksen. We'll start with Christian Eriksen. First one to come in on a free. Christian Eriksen has been good. He was one of them players that you brought in and thought, you know what? Good little creative midfielder, a bit like a sort of Juan Mata type player who's good with his feet, can dribble, get through players, but again, lacking in the area of pace. Not the sort of player that you want to be your sort of number one midfielder starting or anything like that. But Christian Eriksen, a good solid squad player to have and to sort of build a team around, but not around in terms of him being a mainstay in that team, but to have him as part of that team as and when you need to bring him in, or if you need to put him alongside another player or a couple of players, and it's helped United move on players like Fred. We're having Christian Eriksen in there. He was really, really good last season until he got injured against Reading. And since then, this sort of ages catch up to him. He's in his early 30s now. His pace isn't as good as it was, of course. He suffered that cardiac arrest and that sort of overshadows him. But do you know what? He puts the effort in. He's scored a few good goals. He's a danger on the edge of the area from shooting. Christian Eriksen, for me, I think he's been a really good signing. I'd give him a 7 out of 10. Casemiro then was the sort of deadline day, bit of a panic buy really from United. We got beat by Brighton and then got thumped by Brentford, and John Murtaugh decided that the time was now to bring in a player, and Casemiro was that player. He was very, very happy when he negotiated the deal with Real Madrid. That deal could be as valuable as £70 million, which, for Casemiro, I think he's 5-time Champions League winner, pretty much every trophy you could dream of. He's played with some of the best players in the world. He is one of the best players in the world. But United signed him at 30 years of age on a 5-year deal on intense wages, inflated wages. Now, there was always a thought that could that come to bite United in the bum at a later date. It seems that this season, it feels like it's come a bit prematurely. Casemiro started this season and let's be honest, he's been awful. His form's just gone out the window. He's sluggish. Then again, when he's not been in the team, United's midfield looks completely devoid of anything really. So it begs the question: is Casemiro, is he basically the reason that this team ticked? When United won the Carabao Cup last season, the back page of the Manchester Evening News was Case Hero or Hero Miro or something like that, which was basically paying ode to the fact that he was essentially the engine in that team that allowed us to go on and win that competition. Now, look, he's not got the quality of players around him that he had at Real Madrid, but he does bring that star power and that authority and that fear factor to an opposition. Casemiro can get back to his form of last season and his fitness, and he can really knuckle himself down. He's the sort of player that could, again, come in with a 9 out of 10 signing. But at the moment, given his form this season, he's injured. Again, he's been injured, but again, that happened when he was away on international duty, so fortunately, nothing anybody at United could do. I think if we look at last season and sort of don't pay too much attention to recency bias, Casemiro for me is probably an 8 out of 10, slipping towards a 7 out of 10 as time goes on, and maybe look more like a 6 out of 10 at the end of the season, depending on how United end the season and how he does. But for now, Casemiro, 8 out of 10. Next up then is Marcel Sabitzer. United brought him in, I think, in January to, again, fill that void in midfield. United were in the Europa League. We needed some reinforcements, and Bayern Munich allowed Marcel Sabitzer. Again, he wasn't a starter for them. Probably on the bench, maybe a player that rotated in and out of that match day squad. But, a bench player for Bayern Munich is a starter for Manchester United in this day and age. Sabitzer came in, he was good, he shut up that midfield. He's a player that I'd never seen before, never heard of before, to be perfectly honest with you, but Austrian player, good calibre. Again, from the Bayern Munich team, he's now at Borussia Dortmund and he's doing really well there, so that sort of gives you an idea of the levels of Bayern Munich compared to everybody else. But again, Marcel Sabitzer came in, I thought he was good. I thought for the period of time that he was at United, he was good. Didn't tear up any trees, wasn't anything special. I think United would have signed him if given the opportunity and the money was right. I'd give him a 6 out of 10. I think he was, he filled a gap. Moving on to Sofyan Amrabat then. Manchester United brought him in after, let's be honest, he had a really good performance in the World Cup. A lot of the plaudits came from that sprint he made catching Kylian Mbappe in Morocco's game against France. Sofyan Amrabat came into Manchester United with a little bit of expectation that he was going to be backup or rotation with Casemiro. Just to make sure that United had that bolster in midfield. United looked, before we signed him, we were struggling, and Casemiro's form, as I've already explained in this video, was relatively poor, and obviously he's now injured. Amrabat played left back, of course, 4 times for Manchester United and filled in when United were going through a really big injury crisis. But I think overall he's looked relatively out of place. He's looked, off the pace, out of his depth, I think, phrases to use but a few to describe his performances. I think he's completed 90 minutes 6 times, but he's pretty much played 90 minutes 8 times. He's been subbed off in the last few minutes of the game. Yeah, I look at him and I just think a lot of people had high expectations of Amrabat coming in to anchor that defensive midfield, but sometimes when he's got the ball, you just think, what's he gonna do with it? And then he'll try something and he won't come off, and then or he'll be intercepted, and he doesn't seem to have showed up the midfield as much as a lot of people hoped that he would have done. He's obviously had a couple of injuries while he's been at Manchester United, but who hasn't these days? So overall, if I was going to give him a rating out of 10, from what I've seen so far this season, Sofyan Amrabat, 5 out of 10. Next up then is Mason Mount. United signing for a total of 60 million quid if all add-ons are sort of seen, as I keep saying. But you'll see that Samuel Luckhurst said on the podcast not so long since that all the big midfield players moved in the summer, including James Maddison, went from Leicester to Spurs. Declan Rice went from West Ham to Arsenal. And Harry Kane, obviously not a midfielder, but went from Spurs to Bayern. All players that United have sort of been linked with or would have enhanced Manchester United's team. And the sort of one player that United went for, he sort of lost his England play, sort of out of favour a little bit at Chelsea, and probably slipping down the pecking order as Todd Bowley continues his revamp. United paid £60 million for Mason Mount. I remember him on the pre-season tour. He was poor, to be honest. He was very poor. And it was like, well, we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. He's in a new team, he's in a new environment, the intensity isn't there. So he's sort of got two cracks of the whip, really. He's got the crack of the whip where he comes in. Again, he's not playing with the full first team. He's playing with a lot of sort of rotation players. So again, give him the benefit of the doubt. Wait until he plays with the first team again. And then towards the end of that preseason, he never really improved, and he had a couple of good moments. And then he got to the start of the season, it was like, right, okay, well, look, he's had a few weeks training with the team. He's getting to know Ten Hag's methods. So let's see how he gets on. And then he got injured. And then we didn't really see much of him, and saw him a couple of games, and then it was like, oh, Mason Mount's coming back. Mason Mount came back and then he got injured again. I'm sorry, but for a player of that's cost that much money with that much expectation, you know, he's former England international realistically, he's in his mid-20s, so he's got a lot of life in him. But for now, Mason Mount, he's a 2 out of 10 for me. He's been really poor, he's been unavailable. I know it's not necessarily his fault that he's been injured, but we're looking at this objectively from what he's offered the team in his appearances, and I can't remember a Mason Mount appearance in a Manchester United shirt other than the photographs of him arriving that I've got any note really. So fortunately, Mason, you know, you've got a lot of work to do, but for me, 2 out of 10. Right, moving into attack then, final part of the video, we've got 3 attackers at Erik ten Hag signed in his time at Manchester United. Wout Weghorst, who signed on loan, Rasmus Hojlund, 72 million quid, and Antony, the elephant in the room, 85.6 million pound, the sort of defining player of the Ten Hag era. Now, a lot of people, we'll start with Antony, a lot of people have been saying, and especially on our Manchester's Red podcast, that Antony would have played against Tyrell Malacia. So United have signed Tyrell Malacia based on his performances in the Eredivisie. He would have played against Antony. United then spent 85 million quid on Antony. So Tyrell Malacia was either extremely good to be defending against a player like Antony in the Eredivisie, or Antony was very poor that he couldn't get past a player like Tyrell Malacia. Both of them obviously now at Manchester United. Tyrell Malacia came in for 15 million quid, so you can sort of think rotation play fine. If Antony had come in for the fee that it was originally tied about 25 million, you could probably say, you know what, 25 million pound player performing the way he has done, yeah, can sort of accept that. He's got room to improve. He's 23 or something. He's got a lot of room to improve. There's a lot of noise around him. Obviously, the allocations that happened earlier this season, which maybe still looming over him, but you know, he's not been great since he joined. We thought he would improve. We've seen signs of him improving earlier this season, thinking, oh, here we go, he's turned a corner. But Antony, he's just, somebody once described him as like a five-a-side player, and he can take the same player on several times and then deliver nothing. And unfortunately, Antony, it feels like you are the sort of unfortunate defining era of the Ten Hag signing era. £85.6 million. Again, it's not his fault that it cost that much, but I mean, 1 out of 10 is probably harsh, so I'll give him a 2, but Antony, poor. Very, very poor. Wout Weghorst, look, he had a really good World Cup, scored 2 goals. I think it was against Argentina, I think it was, for Holland. And do you know what? He came in. I remember him at Burnley. Didn't pull up any trees, but you know, Burnley are one of these teams where they sign these players, a bit like a Maxwell Cornet. They sign some players and you know, oh, they've unearthed a bit of a gem there. Then they move up the pyramid. And Wout Weghorst sort of went away from Burnley alone because he didn't sort of fit in with the Vincent Kompany method of football. But he went to over to Germany where he was scoring goal after goal and he looked really good. You know, 6 foot plus striker, target man. You know, do you know what? Bring him in alongside Antony Marshall. They could sort of work together a little bit. I fancied that. I thought, do you know what? It was decent. Just never really worked for him. Yeah, I think he scored 2 goals in his time at United. Missed a fair few. United were ever going to sign him permanently, but the idea was that you're bringing in this loan player in with the thought that United were then going to replace him with a proper out-and-out world-class sort of number 9 in the summer and slowly but surely edge Antony Marshall out. The majority of that has been the case. Wout Weghorst went back to Burnley and then went off alone somewhere else. And then United signed Rasmus Hojlund, who was a bit of another raw one. But Wout Weghorst, look, he came in on loan. No real expectations, but we were a bit hopeful. I'd probably say, you know, I'll give him a 5 out of 10. Wasn't amazing, but wasn't terrible equally. And again, we all knew what we were getting when we signed him. We all knew that he was never going to be a permanent fixture. And finally, Rasmus Hojlund, the 20-year-old Danish international. Came in from Atalanta, played in Italy. You know, he's not played that many games when United signed him. He scored a few goals for his country. There's a lot of eyebrows raised with the fee, and United probably could have gone a bit cheaper. But again, United needed a striker. There was no way that we could start the season with Antony Marshall being our only centre forward again. And Rasmus Hojlund's come in, you know, a lot of weight was put on his shoulders. 20 years of age, pretty much unproven really. To be leading line at Manchester United, it's a bit unfair on him. And again, the way he is being looked at is a Manchester United striker. people compare him to the likes of Wayne Rooney, who was a younger striker, but Rooney was at United 18, and alongside people like Ruud van Nistelrooy, Rasmus Hojlund's come here playing against Antony Marshall, who let's be honest, the quicker he leaves the club, the better. But a lot of pressure on his shoulders. He scored 1 Premier League goal. I think he scored 5 in the Champions League. So again, it looks good on paper that he's got that, but you can see how raw he is when he plays. He had a couple of chances, big one against Manchester City that he missed, and he's had a few since then where you just looked and thought, you know what, if that was a Wayne Rooney, if that was a Harry Kane, if that was again, these are players of massively high caliber, but when you're playing for Manchester United, you are going to get compared to these types of players. I think he's got the ability to go on and be successful. The problem is Rasmus Hojlund should be going to a team like a Brighton. Go in there, prove yourself, be part of the project, prove how good you are, score loads of goals. For them, if you don't score massive amount of goals, it's not going to be an issue because the expectation's not there. But at Manchester United, the expectation is there, and for now, I think that he shows the commitment and the character. I just don't think he's got the potency to be starting at Manchester United. And again, that's not his fault, but looking objectively at his performances and his goal record, it just isn't there. His goal record's not there. And for me, for now, I give him a 5 out of 10. But I really, really hope that at the end of the season, we can look at that and we can say, do you know what? As a signing, give him a 6 or a 7. But right now, scored a few goals in Champions League, kept our Champions League campaign alive, got his Premier League goal, which is an incredibly emotional moment, and helped United on our way to a win against Aston Villa. But he really needs to start scoring. He's been ill, so he's been out the last couple of teams. He might play against Wigan, which a League One team. Rasmus Hojlund should be looking at scoring like a hat-trick, really. So we'll see how he does against Wigan. And for now, I'm going to straight down the middle, 5 out of 10. Anyway, let us know in the comments what you think about